standing with me here today. First, our governor. Thank you, Governor, for being here. Thank you for being the clarion call of the harms that are being created by the Trump administration for our seniors. I want to thank Rebecca Prevey, the Executive Director of the Association on Aging in New York, Greg Olson, the Acting Director of the New York State Office for the Aging, State Senator Pat Fahey, Chair of the New York State Senate Disabilities Committee, Assembly Member Gabriela Romero, City of Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan, Albany County Executive Dan McCoy, Albany County Legislative Deputy Chairman Wanda Willingham, Albany City Treasurer Darius Shanfar, Albany City Auditor Dorsey Applers, and I think on his way, our Albany City Council President. Thank you for all caring about this issue and for being very clear-eyed about how this and why this is happening. Over the past few months, the Trump administration and the DOGE boys have announced plans that would make it more difficult for Americans to receive their hard-earned benefits. They're crippling phone support, even though in-person appointments can only be made by phone. They plan to cut 7,000 staff, even though the Social Security Administration's staffing is already at a 50-year low. And they plan to shutter at least 47 Social Security locations, including 2 so far in New York State. The confusion and lack of support staff has made it easier for scammers to take advantage of our older Americans who are just looking for help. The impact of this activity could be catastrophic for our seniors and people with disabilities. These people rely on Social Security to pay their rent, their food, their heating, their medical care, everything they need to survive. My office has been working closely with one disabled woman from Niagara County who was told by the Social Security Administration to call a specific representative's extension by the end of March, or her application could be denied. She's called every day, sometimes more than once a day, has left messages every time she's called. After a month, she has still not received a call back, and it's March 28th. Those who do manage to get through have had to wait on hold for 4 to 5 hours. And the Social Security Administration website has crashed multiple times in the past several days. I've heard from many New Yorkers who are panicking. Retirees in their 60s and 70s are worried that if they can't get access to their money, these are their Social Security dollars that they have invested for their retirement, that if they can't get access to their money, they will either have to return to work or God knows what else. Many have spent their entire careers paying into Social Security, and they, like most of us, expect those dollars are there for them in their retirement. But with fewer staff to process claims, skyrocketing wait times, and systems in disarray, the Social Security Administration could effectively deny thousands of eligible beneficiaries the money that they've earned. Imagine what kind of impact that would have on our New York economy. When people can't buy food or other essentials, it affects all of our local businesses. When they can't afford their health care, that puts greater burden on our hospital systems and clinics. Ultimately, cutting individuals off of Social Security doesn't just affect them. It affects the community, businesses, social services, and our entire economy. It affects all of us, our grandparents, our children, our friends, ourselves. Across New York, over 4 million people receive Social Security benefits, including over 125,000 children. Here in Albany, roughly 70,000 people receive monthly Social Security checks totaling over $128 million. As the ranking member on the Senate Committee on Aging, I have sent multiple letters to the Trump administration denouncing these recent actions and demanding answers. I'm asking for detailed information about the Social Security Administration's offices that have had their leases terminated, including 2 in our state. I'm also requesting more information about Social Security Administration's plans to cut the over-the-phone service. While the administration has allegedly scaled back on its initial plan, the damage is clearly already done. SSA phone services are already in disarray, and this has sparked chaos and fear among those who don't have internet service or who are unable to travel in person to a Social Security office. Social Security is our nation's largest anti-poverty program, Reducing access to this program is not just cruel, it's an economic catastrophe in the making. Our seniors, our children, and our economy deserve so much better. I will do everything to make sure that we can help as many people as possible. I'd now like to bring up our governor, who is at the forefront of fighting this good fight against President Trump's administration and the chaotic and reckless decisions he continues to make.
Thank you, Senator. We are so fortunate here in New York to have you representing us in Washington, being that loud voice on behalf of the people that you care so deeply about, our seniors in particular, but also, as you mentioned, there's children affected and families. And if there's one thing you could always count on as an American your entire life is that what you started paying in for Social Security for your first teenage job and over a lifetime would be there when you need it. And now that promise has all been jeopardized because of Donald Trump's administration and Elon Musk. Now, I want to just quote someone who once spent a lot of time in the city. He was our former governor, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. When he became president and saw the crisis that unfolded over this country known as the Great Depression. It started when he was actually governor. Back in 1935, he saw that there was a path forward to help regain the stability, give people that surety that they would never slip into poverty again. He unfolded the Social Security program. And what he said, we have a moral, legal, and political right to ensure that these payments are always made. He said, he set it up so it was a payroll tax. So he said, no damn politician can ever scrap my Social Security program. Now, maybe not a politician, but maybe he didn't count on some billionaire from South Africa who'd be trying to scrap his program. Someone who actually called it a Ponzi scheme. When Americans heard that, chills went down their spines. I mean, this man has enormous power for an unelected official, and he's using it to destroy the very fabric of our safety nets, programs like Social Security. So he has caused so much chaos and uncertainty. Just walk into this federal building. You can feel it. It's palpable. The anxiety that the workers here who dedicate their lives to public service, not just here, but all across this country, are under siege. Why? Because they're out there helping the people. That is the whole premise behind becoming a public servant. And those who work for Social Security know that there's people who rely on them, and not everybody knows how to go online and figure it out. I heard some seniors say, my grandkids have to come over to help me do this. That's the reality we're in right now. When phone calls aren't answered, when offices are closed, the offices that have been closed in New York State already, that requires seniors who may not have easy access to get around to go from their community and travel across 5 to 7 different counties. How are they going to get there if they need services in person? You gave out the numbers, nearly 70,000 here in Albany County alone, but I'll tell you, in New York, our priorities are different. We think it's wrong to say seniors and people with disabilities have to travel a great distance to secure their benefits. We say it's wrong to deride Social Security as a Ponzi scheme. And we say it's wrong to jeopardize a safety net that has been there to make sure that our citizens never slip into poverty. So we have leaders fighting for them, our citizens. Senator Gillibrand, we appreciate all her work, but there's also 7 other people in the state who need to hear about this. And those are your Republican members of Congress. They're in the majority. They have the power. If 7 members of the delegation from New York State, starting with Elise Stefanik all the way on down, go into the Speaker's office, demand that there be changes, or you will hold up President Trump's agenda. You have the power. And if you don't use that power, then you are complicit on this attack on the American people. And so, citizens, residents, people we represent, all of our elected officials here, make sure our voices are heard, make sure our seniors' voices are heard, and we have to stop the insanity, this attack on our people. Thank you very much.
Well said, Governor. Well said. Thank you. I'd now like to bring up Rebecca Prevey, the Executive Director of the Association of Aging for New York.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning, and thank you to Senator Gillibrand and Governor Hochul for this incredibly important press conference regarding one of the most important programs in the history for older New Yorkers and individuals with disabilities. I have the honor to represent the 59 offices for the aging across New York State, and today we are dealing with an unprecedented crisis regarding threats to Social Security. our phones have been ringing off the hook with older individuals and families that are panicked and distraught with the proposed changes to Social Security, including office closures and reduced access to benefits. For 90 years, Social Security has been a staple for retirement and for income for individuals with disabilities. From your very first paycheck, Social Security payments begin with the understanding that there is a guaranteed benefit for retirement security. Currently, this basic benefit and access is being targeted by the federal government, and the consequences are disturbing. Social Security income supports almost 4 million older New Yorkers and people with disabilities. This benefit is the only source of retirement income for 40% of participants, and any barriers placed on the government on these payments cannot be tolerated. The previous Commissioner of Social Security has indicated that staffing levels are the lowest they have been in 50 years, and there is currently discussion about terminating an additional 7,000 Social Security employees. This is being proposed in an environment in which 10,000 people each day are turning 65, all whom are entitled to reap the benefits that they have paid for decades. Currently, the average wait time to have a call answered is over 2 hours, and beneficiaries can expect to wait 240 days on average for disability determinations. In addition, there are now 71 Social Security offices for the entire state of New York, covering 55,455 square miles. Think about that if you don't have access to transportation services. In most parts of the state, individuals are expected to drive well over an hour to access their local Social Security office if they're even able to obtain an appointment. To put this in perspective, most of the state does not have robust transportation services, and most of the state does not have paratransit services for individuals utilizing wheelchairs or walkers. For individuals that are unable to drive, insisting on an in-person visit is equal to refusing services. The current online verification requirements are also extremely cumbersome and inaccessible for many. 27% of beneficiaries do not use or have access to the internet, and the site itself has crashed numerous times in the past 10 days. The current targeted attacks to a program that has been paid for by older New Yorkers cannot be tolerated. This country should be judged not on how we treat those with privilege, but on how we treat our most vulnerable. Social Security must be protected now and for future generations. Thank you.
Our last speaker is State Senator Pat Fahey.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thank you for your leadership. Our thanks to our governor. Thank you, Rebecca. I am honored to join you here today. It's hard not to be furious. I'm going to try not to repeat some of what was said, but we are talking about three of our most vulnerable constituencies, right? The elderly who rely on Social Security, children, hundreds of thousands who rely on Social Security because of a severely disabled parent or a lost parent, as well as the disabled, and I am proud this year to chair the disability community. That three of the most vulnerable, such that we can find savings, efficiencies, and savings for billionaires, because that's in the end what this is. Yes, we have seen the closed offices. They reopened Kingston, the Social Security office, after a massive outcry. Kudos to Congressman Pat Ryan, the senator, and others who called that out. This entire building, not just the office here, the entire building has been listed on a website to close, because I guess there's no services that are considered essential enough in this federal building. That listing was pulled off the website again because of the outcry. How does closing an office make us more efficient? How does forcing seniors, disabled, and more drive hours to receive services? How does that make us more efficient? How does putting these payments and disability needs make us more efficient? It's just stunning. Another stat, slightly different than what Rebecca said, at least two-thirds of Social Security benefits, Social Security recipients rely on Social Security payments for more than half of their income. The bottom line is this imperils millions of not just New Yorkers, but millions across the country. This has nothing to do with efficiency. But it is about creating financial insecurity and trauma, if you will, such that we can shift payments, shift resources to the ultra wealthy. Make no mistake, this is about the ultra wealthy, when all we need to do is close a few tax loopholes instead of raiding these retirement benefits. This is really the dismantling of government services, and it's outrageous on every level. I welcome standing with all my government partners. I welcome standing with every recipient, and I thank you again, Senator, for your leadership. We need to call this out every day. I may sound furious, but our constituents are terrified. Terrified. Thank you.
So I am so grateful as a local elected official to have the leadership of our senator, our governor, and our state senator and our Senate, our friends in the Assembly speaking out on this issue. And the reason that it matters to us is that the impact happens at the local level. It's the senior who's going to lose their housing and then come to the city and to the county to say, what am I to do? We see that impact firsthand. We see the impact when somebody does not receive the disability services that they need and the impact that that has on their entire families. And so we are feeling it and will feel it at the local level. And so the advocacy that is needed is for us to come together and say no. And that also means not putting pressure. We know we have Senator Gillibrand in our corner, right? We have to hold the Republicans accountable. We have to tell them that we expect better from their leadership. Most of us standing here told you what was going to happen. This administration told you what they were going to do, and now they are doing it. And so if people don't like it, call the Republicans and tell them to stop. There's a difference between being a leader and being a bully. Anybody can be a bully. Leadership is hard. Leadership takes listening. It takes making sure that you have a diverse set of voices at the table. It's making sure that you understand at its core what the challenge is that you're facing. It's rolling up your sleeves and figuring out how to solve problems for everyday Americans. And that's what I see leaders like Senator Gillibrand doing every day. We should demand that of everyone who is representing us. We should demand leaders, not bullies.
Okay, we're happy to take on-topic questions from any of the people standing here.
Yes, Senator, we heard the governor single out 7 Republican members of the House of Representatives. I'm wondering if you've had conversations with your colleagues on the other side of the aisle about this and what the response has been.
So I'm in constant communication with Senate colleagues of both parties, and I think many of these changes are so severe and so drastically different than what they ever imagined. I don't think they've fully absorbed the impact. And I do think what's going to happen over time, as these harms continue to affect every type of citizen in this country, they're going to start calling their representatives, and they're going to start calling their senators, calling their House members. And they're going to begin to understand that their adherence and loyalty to one man, President Trump, is at odds with their responsibility to their constituents. And I think at that point in time, they will hopefully be willing to do the right thing and try to stop some of this. We don't have a majority in the House and Senate. We don't have the votes to stop most of the things that are happening. The reason why we're doing this press conference today is so that constituents know what's actually happening, and that these decisions by President Trump and Elon Musk are radically more harmful and more different than anyone could have ever imagined. And it's going to affect every person's parents and grandparents. It's going to affect every family with a member who has a disability. It's going to affect thousands and hundreds of thousands of children. I mean, it's not a small thing. It's deeply, deeply destabilizing and harmful.
Senator, you're standing here with state and local officials.
Yep.
You're talking about how you don't have the votes to stop most of what might be coming from Washington. What message and what guidance do you have for your partners lower down the waterfall of government in how to plan for a world in which there could be massive federal cuts, massive federal changes coming?
There's going to be a lot of hurt, and there's going to be a lot of suffering by many, many people. And the most important thing that we have to do is make sure their stories are being told. The worst thing that can happen is that people are silenced. And so the press, the fact that you are all here is essential. the fact that every single one of these local electeds and social service organizations, they're going to hear the stories. Those stories need to be published. They need to be lifted up through the news, through social media, through community conversations, so that people can assess this is not what we voted for. They need to assess that. Our democracy relies on truth and relies on facts. And so our job is to lift up the facts. We can't stop all the harms that are happening. We can ask philanthropy to help. We can ask neighbors to help. But we can't, the level of the harms, the hundreds of billions of dollars that are now not coming back to our state, that are our federal tax dollars, that are instead going to be given to Elon Musk and his billionaire buddies, it's an outrage. It's a sin. It's disgraceful. People in New York need to know that they're stealing our tax dollars that are meant to be spent on health care and education and job training and firefighters and police officers and the VA. That money's being taken and given away to billionaires. That's exactly what he's doing. So what we can do between now and the next election is we can just lift up facts and lift up stories and make sure that no one goes to the ballot box next time without the full story of what's happened and what these decisions have wrought. No one has seen their prices go down. Inflation continues to go up. No one's seen the cost of their food go down. No one's seen the cost of their housing go down. No one's seen the cost of heat go down. All these things that were promised have been completely ignored, all in favor of tax breaks for billionaires.
Can there be any relief between now and 2026 if Democrats are more successful in these elections?
So the good news is we have state government that's very strong, but our state budgets are deeply affected by the federal budget because we pay so much in federal tax dollars. We expect a good percentage of them to come back. That's the deal we make, having this system of government. And if our federal dollars don't come back, that means chunks are being taken out of healthcare delivery, out of our veteran services, out of the Social Security Administration that makes sure our seniors and our members of the community who have disabilities get their resources to pay for food and housing and everything else. So we just have to speak out about it, scream about it, rise it up so that either we can convince Trump to change his mind, convince the 7 Republicans, as you asked, to change their mind and stop standing with Trump, convince Republican senators to stop standing by Trump. And the more and more harm that Trump creates, the more and more people are going to be outraged and demand answers and demand changes. Sometimes we win in that fight. Sometimes we get them to change their mind. For example, early on, President Trump cut the resources for 9/11 first responders. The Republicans would not tolerate that, so they spoke up. They wrote letters with us. They demanded to change. We got that reversed. So sometimes we get it reversed through advocacy. Sometimes we get it reversed through lawsuits. So the other thing that we've urged our mayor, our governor, our attorney general has been at the forefront of filing these lawsuits. Social service organizations, not-for-profits, we've urged them all to file lawsuits. Sometimes the lawsuits are successful. So, for example, just recently a judge just said that President Trump had fired all these people who do key things for NIH and key things for disease prevention, and he was there forced to be reinstated because of a lawsuit. Now, if President Trump ignores the lawsuit like he did with NIH funding, so he cut all the NIH funding, so then he told NIH employees, well, you can't send any emails about grants to try to stop money from going out, even though the court said you can't cut off funding. These are appropriations already decided by Congress. So he's trying to undermine our judiciary as well.
Senator, it's funny you mentioned state budgets. Currently, New York is in budget talks.
Yep.
You've asked Speaker of the Assembly constantly, should we have preemptive measures to Trump-proof the state budget, to have some safety reserves set in place? Speaker
I don't
Kennedy
think it's.
said no, that
I don't think it's possible. I think your frame and your question fundamentally doesn't understand the math. It's not possible to Trump-proof the state budget. So much of our money, when you pay your taxes, most of your taxes are federal taxes, right? You know, when you pay your taxes, most are federal taxes. That means so much of your money goes to Washington that's supposed to come here to pay for all social services. That's the way government is set up. It's not possible to Trump-proof our state budget.
So then what happens if there
It means people are going to suffer. What it means is people are going to suffer. This decision with Social Security, people are going to suffer. There's not enough money in the world for state taxes to pay for all the things the federal government's supposed to pay for. The federal government is supposed to pay for Social Security Administration, the Veterans Administration, Medicare, Medicaid. Like, we are supposed to pay for almost every social safety net that exists. And the way we pay for that is we send the money to the agencies, but we also send money to our governors to administer those programs. I think Medicaid almost entirely goes to the governor, right? Yeah. So our Medicaid dollars that we pay as taxpayers goes to the federal government, and then they give it to the governor. If the federal government does not transfer that money to the governor, it means she can't do the stuff she's supposed to do. So you cannot Trump-proof the state budget. You could just speak absolutely. What you can do is we will prioritize what help we can give. They will make those decisions. But make no mistake, it is not possible to make up the difference when President Trump slashes Social Security, the VA, Medicare, and Medicaid. It's not possible. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I
Yes,
just
no,
wanted
please.
to give one statistic to follow up on what the senator was saying, since we are in the thick of the budget. The budget proposal for this year is $252 billion, 252. Of that, roughly $92 billion is federal funds that are passed through, as the senator just explained, in school lunch programs, schools, higher education, you name it, as well as all the other ones covered. So that is almost 40% of our state budget relies on that pass through of federal dollars. There is absolutely no way to backfill this. We are already getting requests. We're seeing every day new cuts coming in. Just yesterday it was to Oasis, some of our, and we know we're going in the wrong direction in terms of addiction, so needing more addiction services, not less, yet we're seeing those cuts. School lunch program, we're one of the few states that does free lunch, free breakfast across the board. 70% of that relies on federal dollars coming back to us, as the senator explained. We already sent it.
Money.
It's
Like,
our
make no
money.
mistake, This is not Trump's money.
Thank you.
Is our money. These are New Yorkers' dollars. This is New York money that he is stealing from us.
So there's no way to backfill.
It's very hard. And the other thing is, I would just say, I would just say that we can also call on philanthropy. Like, New York also is home of some of the most successful Americans ever created. A lot of our hospitals will be reaching out to their philanthropists to say, this is the year you're going to have to give us more money for the cancer wing because our federal dollars aren't coming through. There's no more earmarks. There's no more money coming. So we're going to ask the wealthiest among us to please help through their philanthropy, but there's going to be massive gaps. It's going to happen, and we're going to do our best as people who care deeply about everyone in our state, but our taxpayer dollars are being stolen.
Senator, you, of course, highlighted the really serious nature that these cuts could have on particularly vulnerable New Yorkers.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're dealing with right now in Albany is potential cuts to the Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program, which is a Medicaid program that the governor is forcing into a single fiscal intermediary. At this time next week, there could be tens of thousands of New Yorkers who are not getting paid for home care services. What
Right.
concerns do you have about that? Is it acceptable that we're talking about preventing these cuts when those cuts are going to be in place by this time next week?
Yeah, they're horrible cuts. And so all we can do, I mean, if you've noticed the last 3 months of this administration, it's like,
This is a state program.
right, but it's federal dollars, right? It's federal dollars. So just know, President Trump takes a bowl of spaghetti and he throws it against the wall. Every piece of spaghetti is a cut that's going to harm someone. Some are going to fall down, some are going to stick to the wall. He's trying to dismantle the way the federal government works to help people, period. One of the ways the federal government works to help people is we send those tax dollars back to our state so that these state representatives, our governors, our mayors, our state senators, our state assembly members, decide which programs are best. That program you mentioned is one that they decided is a great way to spend Medicaid dollars because it allows caregivers to be compensated to care for people who need care. I mean, it's one of the most important ideas I've ever heard. It's very important that we pay for caregivers. If you don't have caregivers being paid, that means that there's no one to care for our loved ones who need 24/7 care. If they don't get paid, they can't feed their kids. They can't pay for their children. They can't pay their heat. They lose a job. They have to go find another job. Unemployment's at what? What's unemployment at? 4%. So how many jobs are there available? Probably not enough. So it's very bad. This is what we're trying to explain. And today we're just talking about one harm. That spaghetti is still on the wall. There's like 1,000 harms out there. And I get a list every day of everything Trump does. The list is now tens of pages long. So I know every harm that's happening because of what these decisions are being made. And you could talk about basically one a day. There's already been thousands of harms, and you've just named another one. But that's it. That's the problem. Go ahead.
Senator, do you see a path forward in potentially getting Republicans to be on your side instead of standing with Trump, as you were saying, when they stand with you, is the fight easier to,
Ultimately, if they won't listen to us as their colleagues, they need to listen to their constituents. And the reason why we're doing a press conference is so you can tell their constituents. Because it's hard. People aren't really watching the news anymore. They don't read the paper much. A lot of things go on social media. Sometimes they don't get facts. And they'll not understand that this is a direct decision of President Trump. They'll say, oh no, they're just cutting waste and fraud. This is not waste and fraud. This is the Social Security Administration and taking away the ability to make phone calls to Social Security Administration, taking the ability to get their Social Security check if it gets lost in the mail. Like, this is not a waste or a fraud. Like, we're all in for cutting fat out of programs. This is not that. This is the program itself. And so, again, mixed messages, trying to confuse people. We need the news media to stand strong. He's gone after the news media. I mean, did you read all about the things he's done to your industry? AP can't go to the White House anymore because they don't do enough pro-Trump news. Like, it's disgraceful. So again, making sure these things come to light, making sure they get understood is the most important thing to changing the mind of a Republican representative who is listening to Trump and not his constituents. They just need to know what's happening.
Senator, to what extent could the new minority leader prevent the situation from evolving?
Nothing. It's not about, that's such a distraction. That's not what's happening at all. We are doing absolutely everything that we can possibly do, and Senator Schumer is doing an excellent job. There is no legislative way to stop him. The way to stop him is lawsuits and advocacy, and then once in a while you might have a procedural small win, but that is a battle, that is not the war, because it's small. You have to actually understand all the harms being created to people and then pushing back on those harms so people understand what's happening. It's really that serious. There's no magic here. There's no magic that's not being utilized. It's literally explaining what's happening every day and making sure people hold their representatives accountable and change who's in charge in the next election.
So, Senator, going off of that, there was a recent quote I heard from a Trump administration official that was basically only the fraudsters are going to complain if their checks are late.
Exactly.
Implying that if you're complaining that your check is late, automatically it's fraud, you
Yeah.
don't deserve it.
And who said that? Was that Elon Musk saying, well, who was it? It was Besant. Yeah, well, my mother, did he say? My mother or my mother-in-law wouldn't mind missing a check? Well, yeah, when your son-in-law's a billionaire, you might not miss a check, but the rest of our grandmothers will probably mind missing a check. It's just an absurdity. It's an absurdity. Again, changing the narrative, trying to change, demonizing the person who's being harmed. We have to fight against that. That's why we have to lift these issues up with press conferences, by making sure all the local electeds are using their community outreach to help people as best they can, but it's going to result in harm. This is something you cannot wish away, and you cannot just change the headline. It is people are going to suffer, and we're going to do everything we can to protect as many as we can, but at the end of the day, we have to use our democracy, and our next chance in our democracy is next November.
Sorry, that was Howard Lutnick.
Letnick. I thought it was Letnick. Yeah, Mr. Besant it seems like a much more mild-mannered guy who wouldn't say that, so I was surprised.
I think I heard you say when you were answering Dan's question that you've been in constant contact with your Senate colleagues. Have you been in contact with your House colleagues?
Some of them. I don't talk to them as often.
Republicans?
Yeah, some of them.
And how do you think having Elise Stefanik back in the House, does that help New York?
Wearing your different hat as the DSCC, does that bode well for Democrats?
Sorry, say words again.
Do you think that is a good sign for Democrats? Do you think Democrats should be reading that as they're being worried?
I think they should be worried. They should be very worried because they're doing things that create enormous chaos, harm, and hurt people. And that is not what government's supposed to do. And when presidents have all the power and they have both branches of government and they overreach, which happens many times in history, it does create, in our instance, a blue wave. And I think the wave will be big enough to flip the House and the Senate.
So going sort of off of that, Senator, as the mayor has mentioned, as the governor has mentioned, Mayor Sheen, you said basically you depend on capital city funding. That depends on the state budget, and the state budget depends on federal funding. Well, now that our federal funding, it's all up in the air. What should New York do about its budget plans, given the uncertainty with everything?
These are very brilliant elected leaders. They're going to make their best judgments based on the facts that they have and the resources that they have, and that's why we elect them. It's not going to be easy, but they're going to do their absolute best, and they're going to try to help as many people as possible. Do you want to speak directly?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are going to move ahead with the plan that we have, but it is a plan. And if things change, we'll have to be very transparent with our constituents about why we're not doing the thing that we thought that we were going to be able to do. But, you know, the harm to humans is very real. The other concern that I have as a local elected official is the harm that this is going to do to safety in our community. Democrats have for years been painted as causing a huge uptick in crime and our cities aren't safe. If you want to rip out the safety net and the underpinnings that keep our community safe, this is the game plan for doing it. If you're not going to treat people with addiction and mental health issues, and if you're not going to provide people with the ability to stay in their homes, we already see that a significant number of new homeless individuals are seniors and are struggling. This is what you do if you want to make communities unsafe. And so I think, again, it's important, and I'll be a little bit political about this. I'm sick and tired of hearing the Democrats criticized for all of this. This is not anything that the Democrats are doing. Donald Trump said exactly what he was going to do, and now he is doing it. And that is who needs to be held accountable for this, not attacks on my friends who are in Washington fighting the good fight.
But also, Donald Trump lied. Like,
Right.
He said, I'm going to get the cost of all the food down. I'm going to get inflation down. I'm going to get the housing trouble fixed. I'm going to make communities safer. So he lied. He misled the American people. He misled the people who voted for him. And part of our job is just to make sure everyone knows the facts of what's happening so they can make perhaps a different decision next time. Because it was almost like he captured them. It was a captured audience. He misled them. He lured them into feeling comfortable and safe. He lured them into a vision of America that he was never going to create, and just pretended to create. So he misled our voters. He misled our communities. He misled a lot of people. And the truth is the only antidote to those lies. We have to keep pushing up the truth so people can make their own decisions. That's what our democracy is based on.
Senator, one final point. Many people might be looking toward the courts for a remedy. And you've pointed out that some of the decisions have gone against Trump, some of the future might go against him. And other political pundits have been talking about Trump not caring about those court decisions, thumbing his nose. How concerned are you that there might not be a solution, a remedy to what this administration is doing?
So let's use the example of what we're here to talk about, because it's just a good example. He's shuttering Social Security offices. He is firing Social Security workers. He is making it impossible for seniors to call to get help, if their check's lost in the mail or something's wrong. Same with people with disabilities, same with families with children. If these people don't get their check, they don't get their check. So maybe they can go to the food bank that month. Maybe they can go to some other social service program that the mayor or the governor has set up for New Yorkers. Maybe their neighbor will make up the difference for them that month by making a few extra plates of lasagna for them. Like, who knows? But you're just going to have suffering. We as a society decided a long time ago that government should make sure our seniors don't die in poverty, because seniors were dying in poverty before we started Social Security. So we said this is going to be our safety net, and we're going to add to it later Medicare to make sure they get the health care they need so they're not dying in poverty. If we go back to that time when these safety nets don't exist, more seniors are going to die in poverty. Society's going to have to help them. We're going to have to help them. We're going to have to do whatever it takes. And New York is a very generous state, and we have really good local electeds who've created excellent programs. So hopefully we'll have enough safety nets to protect people's lives, and so they're not dying in poverty. But that's what we're up against. Dismantling a program that prevents seniors from dying in poverty. That's what we're up against. So caring about our neighbor, hoping our faith-based communities can do as much as they can, hoping our philanthropists do more, and then neighbor to neighbor, and then good local governments to try to make up as much as the difference as they can. That's all we've got for us.
I guess what I'm asking, are the courts powerful enough to block this?
Yes, so the courts have, yes. So the courts, well, we'll see. That's when someone starts talking about a constitutional crisis, that's what they're talking about. And that's a very heady, complex analysis. But the courts are going to keep ruling as they see fit. Most of the time, they're ruling in our favor. We've filed over 100 lawsuits collectively from the American people, and we have won over 24, 25 of them already. We've only lost, I think, 2. And so each time that decision is made, it gives us a basis on which to push back at the administration. If the administration does ultimately subvert the courts in some meaningful way, that is what we have to decide what we can do then. And I don't know the answer to that question, and no one does, because no one's even imagined it before. Never imagined it. So I don't want to talk to the what ifs, because that's just a scenario that's frightening, to be honest. It'd be frightening for people. So let's hope the courts continue to rule. Let's hope we can implement it. Let's hope there's enough smart people around President Trump to say, let's not undermine our third branch of government. Let's hope our House Republicans stand up for their constituents, as opposed to being loyal to one person in this country. That's what we have, and so we have to just keep encouraging. And the good news is we are a very vibrant democracy. And so for every one of those Republican members who are more loyal to Trump than their constituents, they have a lot of constituents. They have their mothers, they have their fathers, they have their children, they have their family, they have their neighbors who can speak to them and say, this isn't right. So we have to rely on humanity to do the right thing too. But that's why we're here, to talk about one example that is very harmful. And I appreciate you all coming. Thank you for coming.
Can I get everybody for a picture?
Thank you. Sure. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you so much. Oh, God bless you. Thank you. Well done. Well said. Okay, let's all get in.
Sorry, I just have one final question before I.
Wait. We're doing pictures.
Picture
You
first.
can get me off camera. We're fine.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Let me get my phone.
Okay.